Hey, my friend, today I'm going to answer a question that I get sometimes from my students, and it is, what is the difference between a chord inversion and slash chords? Are those the same thing? So if you're just here for the answer, here it is. A chord inversion is a chord where the lowest note is going to be a note of your chord, but not the fundamental note. So usually the third or the fifth of your chord at the bottom. And a slash chord, it can be any note you want as the lowest note, even if it's a note that's not a part of your chord and that's outside your chord. So basically, all chord inversions are slash chords, but not all slash chords are chords inversions. So for example, if I take a chord like a C major, like this, now it's in fundamental position because my root note, C, is at the bottom and is the lowest note. In my C major chord, I have three notes. I have C, E, G. And when C is at the bottom, that's a fundamental. But I could decide to replace the C with either the E or the G as the lowest note, and that would be a chord inversion. So if I remove my index here and I play an E note instead, let's say here, now we are going to call this a C over E. So we're going to write C slash E. So that's both a slash chord and a chord inversion because E is a part of my C major chord. Same thing is if I play C over G like this. Because once again, there is a G in my C chord, so that's just a chord inversion. But I could also slap a different bass note underneath my chord that is not a part of my C chord. So for example, I could have a C over F, or a C over D, or I don't know, C over B flat. All great sounding chords, but the bass note is outside of my chord. So we're going to call this a slash chord, and it is not a chord inversion because the lowest note is not a part of my C major chord, right? So usually there is a big correlation between your chord inversion shapes that you find and the open chords that you first learn on guitar. So if I come back, for example, on that C over E, if you look at it, that's just the shape of an open G major chord with three fingers, like this. But I just removed the notes on the sixth and first strings, both G notes, to keep only that. And I'm just shifting that. Right? And now the result is a C chord over E. So usually you can just manipulate most of the open chords that you know, just change one or two things about them and create your own chord inversions. So for example, if I take an open D chord and I just play it in a closed position so that I can shift it wherever I want. So let's say that I play it here from the second fret. So that's an E major chord, right? Because D, D sharp, E, right? And now, since my sixth and my first strings are both E strings, it means that any note that is on the first string or on the sixth string or vice versa can be played on the other string. So I can take the note on the fourth fret on my first string and just throw it under here on my fourth fret of the sixth string and play the other notes. And now I get my E chord, but now it's an E over G sharp. The chord sits on its third, on the third of the chord right now. So that's an example of how you could create your own chord inversions just by changing a few things in your chord. But if I play the same shape right here, but I change the bass note, let's say I have an A, or an F sharp, or a C sharp, or anything like this, now that's an E slash C sharp, E slash F sharp, E slash A, but this is not a chord inversion because those bass notes are not a part of my E chord. So you get the principle here? Sometimes chords can be spelled in different ways and all be right. So you might be looking at this chord right here and say, why are you calling this a E over C sharp? What I see is a C sharp minor 7. We have the root, the minor 3rd, the minor 7th. We have all requirements to call that a C sharp minor 7. And you would be totally right. I think we have to look at the context to find the right spelling for the chord. So for example, if I'm playing lots of 7th extended chords in a more jazzy setting like this, in that case, yes, I would call this a C sharp minor 7 because it works in the context. It just doesn't make any sense to call this an E over C sharp. You see, I took the D shape, slided it 2 frets higher, and just slapped a C sharp at the bottom. But let's say that I'm playing something like this. So in that context, that's just a long E major chord, and I'm just using bass notes as quick passing tones. So in that case, I would call this an E over C sharp, E over G sharp, E over F sharp, and back to E, because it makes more sense in the context here. So there you go. A chord inversion is a chord where the lowest note is a note of the chord, and a slash chord can have any bass note at the bottom. And I hope that it gave you some ideas to build your own chord inversions or slash chords. And if you are new to the world of more advanced guitar chords, you want to break out of the usual open shapes and bar chord and power chords that you first learn on the guitar, and you want to expand your chord vocabulary, I offer you a free mini course on chord structures on my website, and you can get it, first link in the description box. We talk about spread triads and harmonization and voice leading and muting techniques for your chords, and I'm giving you chord charts and exercises that you can download for free and practice. So that's a super great resource that I don't want you to miss. So you can click on the first link in the description box if you want to go further with me. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, au revoir.